want to bring up our special guest for the evening that attended Game 4 last night at the Garden, Brian Attard from the Sports Box. Hello, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you? How was Game 4?
Pleasure is all on this side of the table, gentlemen. I'm happy to be on review and preview tonight. And listen, Game 4 was arguably their best start to finish game of the playoffs. Not from the jump. I think Carolina might regret how they handled the end of Game 3, because I think they might have awoken a part of the Rangers that hasn't really had to be, there most of this year. But, I don't think Carolina's built for that. I don't think they want war. I think they want talk. And I don't think the Rangers are built for talk. I think they're built for war. And I think that if you look at the way Game 4 kind of transpired, the Rangers were there and they were ready to do whatever was needed, except for, Lorenz, who decided to get in Trouba's face for a clean hit, I might add. The series is completely different today than it was 4 days ago. Just night and day. Now, having said that, guys, Carolina did lose all the road games in Boston too. So let's not get all in on it right now. But if you're a Rangers fan, you gotta be happy with the way the last 2 games have gone.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, Kyle, as an Islanders fan, you predicted the Rangers to make the Eastern Conference Finals at the beginning of the season. That's still in play heading into Game 5 of the semis. Do you still believe in the Rangers taking down the number 1 seeded Hurricanes out of the Metro?
I still believe there's a very possible chance of it, because what I've seen from this Carolina team right now is that I think that, again, while Antti Raanta is not a bad goaltender by any stretch of the imagination, you see in some cases they're missing Frederik Andersen, who was one of the best goaltenders in all of hockey this year and was making strides towards coming back in this series, but was practicing yesterday and suffered a lower body injury. So I don't even know if he's going to be playing in this playoff series at all, or maybe they'll have to race him back if the Rangers do wind up going 3-2 in Carolina in Game 5. But this Rangers team, the reason why I predicted that in the beginning of the season, Tom, is because all the talent is there. It's just a matter of them getting on the same page. And you're seeing that. It's just been inconsistent, right? The only constant I could see out of this Rangers team so far is Igor Shesterkin. He's the only guy throughout both series that has been showing up every single night. In some cases, the Penguins series, the defense was absentee basically almost every single game. The first couple games against the Carolina Hurricanes, you saw the defense was tremendous. They were holding them to 20 shots. And then again, these last 2 games, they haven't been holding them to a limited amount of shots, but the Rangers have been winning in terms of actually putting the puck in the back of the net. But then, and Brian, maybe you'll attest to this as well. Again, you're a very, very intelligent Ranger fan, but from Ranger fans that are speaking about this team, the craziest thing, and it's mind-boggling, is that the same thing happened in the Penguin series too. When they went down the way they went down, we weren't supposed to be here. This is a building year. We're dealing with a lot of young guys. Same thing. You go down 2-0 to Carolina. Young team, inconsistent. Igor's never played this many games. Now you're right back in that 2-2 situation. Now they're back on the bandwagon. They're back on the horse saying we could win this thing. And the blame that's going towards, the amount of blame that's going towards we're young. When in all reality, the youth has been some of the best part of this team. The reason why they are struggling the way they are struggling is because, for whatever the reason is, and I don't know, maybe you could give more of an intelligent answer. Where is Artemi Panarin? Because I know this firsthand, especially being in the New York media market, reading the way I do about sports. If he does not hit that overtime shot, the headline on the New York Daily News is Breadman MIA. And it's been the same thing this series. You'll see there was even at points last night. Luckily, they had a big enough lead goal-wise. He was open. He had 10 feet in front of him between him and a defender. He just refused to shoot the puck. And I don't get what the reason is, considering this guy just had another 90-point season. Might be designated as, again, Chris Kreider had a hell of a season, no doubt about it. But all in all, he might be the best offensive player on the team. And this is a guy that's not even bothering to shoot the puck. And I don't know what the reason is why. People would say, it's because he's missing a lot on his shots. That's why he's limited his shots. But this is not a guy that he usually capitalizes when he shoots. Yeah. So I don't get what the limitation is.
I think it's right here. Yeah. I think that, and you thought that the Game 7 OT winner would have gotten him out of that funk, and it really hasn't for the most part. But look, the playoffs are a different animal. You don't get the space that you normally get in the regular season. The pressure is on, and look, he has not risen to the occasion outside of the biggest occasion so far.
Yeah.
So let's call that what it is. But no, I think that, for it in long stretches, the veterans have been MIA. And it really wasn't until game 6 and 7 of the Penguin series that Mika Zibanejad came off a milk carton, that Chris Kreider came off a milk carton, and they were there when they needed them to be there.
Yeah.
I think, he said something along the lines of, I want to try some stupid shit at the blue line, but I'm not because it's the playoffs. And I wonder how much of them trying to play a more sound defensive structure is resulting in him, doing 80% of his abilities. I mean, he hasn't. Look, they've been to you know this, Tom, and you know this too. They love to pass to each other. They will pass to each other for 4 minutes and then not take a shot. Yeah. They look for the perfect play, like anybody's business. And the difference between, I think, this team and David Quinn's team is, Quinn would be in the media. Oh, we have that East-West flu, yada yada yada. Like, he call him out on it. Gallant just lets them do whatever they want for the most part. So it's like let the players play. There's a pro and a con to that. In his case, I think that it's gripping the bat, basically. Like that's pretty much the equivalent of it. And I'm as surprised as anybody that the big game 7 winner, and that was like a seeing eye shot too. That was like a legit, sniper shot that didn't get him out of it. I mean, is he being keyed on by the other team? That's fine. I mean, if you're going to draw coverage and someone else is going to be open, I mean, that they are scoring goals, so it's not a huge problem. But I mean, if we saw in games 3 and 4 the same offense we saw in games 1 and 2, it would be a much more pronounced issue. But I guess that's with anything else. I do think it's in his head, or he's got some kind of an injury that nobody knows about and they're not talking about.
That's what I'm thinking it might be. There might be something under the rug that we don't know about that could be affecting his play. But a couple comments here in the comment section. Hank says, Trouba the Tank.
Clean hit.
Yes, very clean. Rangers in 6.
Did you see the golf shot? I don't watch golf, but I saw somebody yelled Rangers in 6 after somebody, teed off.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
I did see some of, what was it, the PGA Championship?
Yeah, it was the past
weekend.
Yeah.
It's all Latin to me because I don't watch it, but I saw
a
clip because it said Rangers in 6. I'm like, oh, what's this? And I watched it. So
and then in game 3, I mean, you talk about Tyler Mott. He sealed the cake in game 3 with the empty netter. One of the unsung heroes on this team, getting him back has been incredible.
He's a Lightning guy. Like, you think back to the way the Lightning won their Stanley Cups. That third line was crucial in both of those runs. And, right in game 4, I was surprised as anybody that Kakko was demoted to the 4th line. I think that was more to put Mott up than it was to put Kakko down. But I mean, he's played well with Lafreniere and Hedl. I mean, the two of them together. I mean, at times they've been driving play for this team. And at parts during the Penguin series, it was that line with Kakko that was really center stage. And Mott's one of those guys. Like those are the kind of guys that you need on a team that can win the Stanley Cup. It can't be, 12 Panarins out there. I mean, Panarin when he's Panarin. But like what I mean is you need those glue type of guys. Kyle, as you know, I mean, when we looked at the Islanders series last year, I mean, both teams had those kind of guys. That's what it came down to.
Yeah, listen, the 4th line for the Islanders, you saw they were missing it this year. They were missing it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's at this time of year, like when it, and you saw a lot of that too. I think it was most exemplified in game 2, where the Rangers power play has been such a weapon all year. Huge weapon. I mean, there's one of the big reasons they are where they are. And Carolina was very aggressive. They did not let them get set up. And that was a game the Rangers got shut out. So thankfully they were able to get it going in games 3 and 4. But those kind of guys make all the difference this time of year. And Tyler Mott, I would love to see them bring him back. Same with Andrew Kopp. Ryan Strome can go somewhere else. But the trade deadline additions, like it's reminiscent of 94 in that they brought guys in that, did they overpay in some cases? Maybe a little bit for Kopp, but whatever. But you can lose trades and win something, but they've fit in perfectly. So you really, I mean, Chris Drury, tip your hat to him. I mean, they did everything right at the deadline.
They did. The addition of Andrew Kopp was huge in game 4, had 1 goal, 2 assists in the Rangers 4-1 win. Igor with 30 saves. I mean, Vetrano got a piece of the pie. Adam Fox. I mean, they struck quickly, scored goals in the first period. Mika in the second. But Daniel brings up a good question. Do you have any worry? I know you touched on Kakko a little bit, but Lafreniere, again, another young player.
He is coming into his own in a big way in these playoffs. I mean, somebody I saw gave him a little comparison to Brad Marchand and the way he's getting under people's skin. I mean, look, that they're playing very, very well. Yeah. a lot comes up about Lafreniere and Kakko, and I was like, why aren't they doing what McKinnon does or any of these other, top flight picks? And David Quinn on a podcast, I want to say it was like last winter or whenever it was coming into last season. And he's like, those guys are going to be fine. That usually those 1 and 2 picks end up on teams that are god awful. And as a result, they end up getting those top 6 minutes at power play time. Lafreniere leads the team in the season in 5-on-5 goals. Not a single one on the power play because they don't get the power play time. Because you have Panarin and Kreider and Zibanejad and Strome and Fox and guys that you just slot in higher spots. Whereas, Tim Stützle in Ottawa gets all the power play time because who else is going to get the power play time? So I don't worry about them. If anything, from a cap perspective, the fact that Kakko hasn't really broken out's a good thing because they can actually give him a contract that's not insane the way you look at like what the Devils have done with Jack Hughes. And he's earned it, don't get me wrong. But these young guys are getting paid much more quickly. And for a team like the Rangers, who is going to run into cap problems sooner than later, getting him on a low money deal is going to be huge. I don't worry about them at all because they're still 21, 22 years old. And I think that I think the NFL draft specifically has like conditioned us to expect production immediately. How many guys, even at their age, make the team? I mean, if you go back to Kakko's draft year, I'm sure half the first round not even played a game yet. So I don't get too worried. I mean, they're in the right spots, and I love what I've seen from Lafreniere. And frankly, at game 1, I know Kakko missed a wide open net. He was their best player. Mm-hmm. So I don't worry about it at all. They'll take their time. I'm not concerned.
What I will say about is this, because I've actually had this same conversation, because Lafreniere, I don't think that's an issue or a cause for concern whatsoever. But Kakko, Brian, to piggyback on based on what you said, the only way that worry comes into the mind is that with a team as deep as the Rangers, I don't think that he's ever going to get the opportunity. That's why I would say worry. Is that, again, it's not because of the fact that he's a second overall pick, he's a bust, he might be looked at in this draft class, whatever it may be, but he may be viewed that way from an outsider's perspective because you guys closely as Ranger fans know it firsthand is that he's probably never going to get the opportunity on this team. And that's the reason why he might be labeled as that.
Well, here's the thing, too. I mean, really, he has a more open path than Lafreniere does because Lafreniere is your third left wing right now.
Yeah.
And those guys are locked in for a long period of time. So unless Lafreniere goes to the right, he's not going to get top 6 minutes ever. And that is a bit of a concern. But the way I look at it for both of these guys is they were the obvious picks.
Yeah.
Because the Devils made this pick for them when they took Jack Hughes. If they took Kakko, the Rangers take Jack Hughes. So if Kakko were to bust, honestly, I don't care because then the world got it wrong. It wasn't that the Rangers, in their infinite wisdom, went and took a guy like a Hugh Jessamine or the litany of guys they used to take, which were god awful, never even made it because that was their bright idea. Lias Anderson, another example. Consensus number 2, universal number 2, could have gone 1 by some. If the world gets it wrong, it's not your fault. I go back to Nolan Patrick in Philadelphia. He was a consensus top 2 pick. Do I blame the Flyers for getting it wrong? No, I would love to. I hate them. But to be fair, if everybody says this is a top 2 pick, you'd be the idiot and put your neck out there to not take that player. So I don't fault the teams for the guys who, earned it. I mean, and really in many cases, look, I would have loved to have Jack Hughes because Lafreniere and Kakko are both wings, and this team has a long-term center problem. So Quentin Byfield would have been a great pick, but you can't pass up Lafreniere. That's just the way the breaks were.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. I think both of those players have made really solid contributions to the team in their early years. And Savior here with the comment, Panarin actually played a very good game 4. He was skating and passing. He just needs a little luck. Yeah, I mean,
he's right though. But to his point, like you thought, look, it's like baseball, right? Like when you're in a slump, you're in a slump. But if you like bust out of it, like you get hot.
Yeah.
I just thought that him getting that goal in Game 7 was going to be like the launching pad. And I felt really good about him coming into the series as a result. It hasn't really materialized, but they're not down 3-1. I mean, could it be a difference in games 1 and 2? It is what it is. I mean, they played well enough to win, I think, both of those games, at least defensively. Again, I'm not worried about it. Yeah. Kyle, to your point about Rangers fans jumping on and off the bandwagon, I don't necessarily think that it's that because I did not expect them to win this series. I thought they'd beat Pittsburgh. I thought they'd get by Pittsburgh coming into that series, and they drain you to get past Pittsburgh. I didn't think they'd beat Carolina. I mean, I try my best to balance my fandom with my gut and my thoughts. I think the world of Carolina. So The fact that we're here right now in a 2-2 series, as well as they've played, I am pleasantly surprised. If they find a way to get through this team, they're facing Tampa Bay, who hasn't lost a playoff series in the last 10. I mean, am I going to go in that series expecting the Rangers to win? No, probably not. Would I be happy if they did? Absolutely. So I don't necessarily know that it's jumping on and off the bandwagon. It's like you're kind of adjusting to what you see. Because
I think that's the better way of phrasing it, because again, Brian, to add on to that as well, is that again, looking at the series, my assumption with this series against Carolina was this, is that you knew that you weren't going to have Anderson going in. So Ronta's not a bad goalie, but again, it's another backup you're playing against.
Right.
On top of the fact that Carolina is a little familiar face as well. Yeah. But again, Carolina being a more defensive heavy team, the Rangers, if they were able to get the puck in the back of the net, again, I don't know if the Carolina necessarily had the offense to necessarily compete with this Ranger team. You saw that in games 3 and 4. The Carolina has struggled mightily, especially knowing that Igor Shesterkin in net also plays a huge factor in what goes in the back of the net for the opposing team. The problem that I see is, again, in those first 2 games, is that as great as defensively as they played, they were getting outplayed to the point where we're really only in that third period where they completely fell apart. But again, Brian, like you alluded to as well, seeing it before your own eyes, right? Because after that game 2, especially with game 2, because that was the one I was kind of pointing to with Artemi Panarin, which I thought was a really big concern. Like 20 minutes, didn't even have a single shot on goal. He was not even attempting to shoot at the net. But after winning games 3 and 4, you're looking back at a Ranger fan, and looking back as a Ranger fan, you're saying to yourself, well, I didn't think we were going to be here. We're winning without this guy. So let's just see how this plays out.
This year has such a different feel than like 15 did, because when they lost to Tampa in 15, which I mentioned in my commercial, if anybody's seen it on MSG, that I bought my house that day, it felt like the music died. Like I felt like that was the end. Whereas I don't think this is the best iteration of the Rangers you're going to see. This is just the beginning. So it's not, I don't use the word house money by any stretch of the imagination. You've earned your spot to get to this point. I would not be surprised if they lost this series. I would not be surprised if they lost the next series. And God willing, they got to the finals and it's Colorado. That might be extremely difficult to watch because Colorado's a buzzsaw. But it's not like we think this is the last best shot. So I don't know if that, like from a mental perspective, like affects the way you look at it, because you're assuming, right or wrong, you're going to get to this point a couple of times in the next couple of years because you've positioned yourself to do it. I think if we were having this exact conversation, this exact situation with the 15 team, a lot more angst, frankly, because again, you see the writing on the wall. You're like, well, how many more times? That was the end of their window. We didn't know it at the time, or we kind of thought maybe, but like this is the window just opened for the Rangers. So I think you just feel differently about it because you know there's probably better still to come in future years. So this is, if they don't get it done here, you didn't expect them to anyway. So you can't really. When they lost in 15, huge disappointment because you expected them to go further because they'd gone further the year before and they got better, supposedly, in that offseason. So like I said, I don't think it's bandwagon jumping. I don't think it's anything other than we probably came into the series thinking they were going to lose. They're playing better than Tom, I mean, the Rangers playing this good defensively the first couple games, I would have never predicted that. They've relied on Igor, and that's fine. Like, he's part of the team. He's a player on the team, right? But, I mean, they really, like, clamped it down. They
have. And,
so,
to your point, though, I mean, I think I went in. I picked the Canes in 6. Now I'm going to go Canes in 7, only because, they've lost every road game in the playoffs, but they've also won every home game in the playoffs, and they have the home ice. Now, is this a different Rangers team going back to Carolina in Game 5? Yes. They have the momentum in this series now. Carolina does not. The thing for me is if the Rangers were going to win this series, they had to take one of the first 2 in Carolina, and they were unable to do that. They had the lead in Game 1 up until the very end. They were controlling that game, and then Carolina got hot at the end, and that speaks volumes to how good of a team they are. They can turn the Jets on for 2 minutes and win a hockey game like that, where Brian Daboll's smashing his TV at home, which by the way, I mean, you want to talk about energy, the amount of local support from other New York sports teams is incredible. I know Hank sends me pictures every night. He's there. Daboll's 5-0 in the playoffs for the Rangers when he's in attendance. I don't know if he's a good luck charm or something, but
I mean, I'm 3-0 for what it's worth.
I mean, I'm sure, I mean, you
Listen,
don't love
listen,
it, but you
Tom,
don't hate
hopefully
it.
hopefully some of that winning luck could translate onto the football field this season for our Giants.
Well, sticking to the Rangers, though,
I am not a Giants fan. I don't hate the Giants though, so
Yeah.
I don't mind it at all.
yeah. See, I feel the same about. I can't say I feel exactly the same about the Cowboys, but there's much less animosity towards them than the.
There's levels to it.
There are levels to it, and I was mad about 7 years ago. I went to Dunkin' Donuts, which
You wouldn't see me there.
is a mistake, number one, for doing this, and I feel like this might be the reason why you like Starbucks. Maybe it's a little far fetched, but they had
You freeze a little bit.
a logo
Yeah, you froze a
There
little
you
bit.
on the coffee
Yeah.
in New York, and I'm sure they do it down there too. You get flyers. You
Yeah,
get
I
so-
mean,
yeah,
I just
that's why Brian's a Starbucks.
I just buy the coffee that is good. I don't really like Dunkin' coffee, but that's not they're not for tonight's show anyway. But yeah, I mean, look, in my personal opinion, I think the Rangers win Game 6 regardless. So it just depends what happens in Game 5. They have all the
Right.
momentum in the world. Carolina is on their heels, and I think they're more on their heels now than they were against Boston. I don't think the Rangers just seem like they've come to another level
Mhm.
that you probably didn't think that they had. That they're finding ways to win in ways that you haven't seen them win before. And I
Nobody
think
expected them to play.
no, and you think that the one time they beat Carolina this year was when Georgiev stole.
Okay, you did, Kyle.
Well, listen.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
brother. Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, right? People probably called you nuts when you said they were going to go that far, right?
I did.
People thought I was insane for thinking it. My thing was this, and Brian, throw it back to you right after this.
Yeah.
I just thought that they were too talented not to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. That was just me. The only thing that they had against them, especially because you look at last season, I watched that team, closely as well because I have a buddy who loves the Rangers. The only thing working against them last season, again, a multitude of COVID stints. You had some injuries. You had Artemi Panarin that week, 2 weeks, whatever it was. He had a little situation. And the fact that Quinn was horrendous as a coach. But when you bring in Gallant and you have all these guys, you're gaining some chemistry. And then you add in the fact that, you get through a couple months of the season and Kreider looks like a god. He doesn't just have a 2-month stretch. It's a whole season stretch. You say to yourself, well, who's going to beat this team when it comes down the stretch if they're performing at this level? And I didn't think that there was going to be a team.
When I think back to last year, and I mentioned this on Blue Truth, and someone said, I never thought about it that way, and you're exactly right. Last year was pretty much 40-some-odd games of playoff-type hockey, that it was like nuclear war, because it's the teams that hate you, and you hate them, and you're just playing them over and over and over again, and there's no break. You don't get that trip to L.A. and Anaheim and San Jose. You don't get those when the Kraken come in or the Wild come in, like teams that you don't have the animosity against. And last year's Ranger team wasn't really built for it. And I think that was a big reason why it went down the way it went down. It was a very tough division last year. They addressed that in the offseason in a big way. And look, I was critical of it. I'm like, you're getting Ryan Reeves, who can't even skate anymore. You're paying Barclay Goodrow all this money for 6 years. Like, are you over adjusting to what was probably a very contained year that wouldn't happen again? I'm happily wrong about that. I'm wrong all the time. What the hell do I care? But here's where we are. So, but at the start of the season, they were relying on their goaltending, and there's been times when they've done that. But the deadline additions were good, and it's working out well. And even to Seth's point here, it's kind of weird, right? But they probably saw their own demise. I mean, games 3 and 4 against Pittsburgh could not have gone any worse, right? They just could not have gone any worse. And it was like, is this really how we want to end the year? And they've been a whole different team since then. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe like game 5, they came out a little bit slow, but like they found a way. Like the team always finds a way. And you'd rather not find a way because that means that you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball, but they find a way. And I don't think that they're going to go away easily. Even if they lose game 5, like I said, they're going to win game 6. The question is, could they win a 7th game in Carolina? Again, if Carolina wants to play a heavy game, I don't think they're built to do that. I think they're an extremely well-coached team. I think they're very good. I mean, it's going to take everything the Rangers have to get by them if they do. But at this point, I don't see why they can't, because they're playing a completely different way than. And you always knew Carolina was going to be a different animal than Pittsburgh. I mean, these are the 2 teams in the league this year that allowed the least amount of goals. Carolina more because of their structure, the Rangers because of their goaltender, and that's the difference. Like, even if me personally, I actually want you to go through your guys' take on this. I think Tampa would rather play Carolina than the Rangers because Tampa's gone through average goaltending at best to this point. They haven't come across a team with a goalie who can steal the game on his own. Very Lundqvist-esque, if you ask me. So I think Tampa would rather face the devil that they know in Carolina, who they beat last year, than the devil that they don't. And frankly, again, I'm not saying the Rangers are going to beat Carolina, but I'm just thinking 2 steps ahead. The Rangers owe them one from 2015. So that would be an interesting subplot to that one. But I do think that Tampa would rather play Carolina because the Rangers can play that kind of game.
I agree with you 100%. And it's not just because of the defensive structure or even the goalie structure. It's because of the fact that I think when I really analyze these teams, really the exception of the Boston series, Carolina, not one of these games has really shown you that they're competent in terms of scoring right now. Like they haven't been able to score. And it's because the Rangers defense, again, Igor Shesterkin is going to do his thing. That's guaranteed. He's playing up to that Vasilevsky level, that Henrik Lundqvist-esque level, Brian, what you're talking about. But at least with them, is that even if the defense is okay, subpar, whatever it is, that team is capable of scoring if they're hot. In fact, at a high pace. Carolina, I don't think they're capable of doing that, at least from what they've shown so far.
Power play has been ice cold for them. Knock on wood, it needs to stay there. But it's really, and Barry Melrose said this. I hate ESPN, but I happened to be on. I was looking for highlights when I got home from the game. And he said, that can be such a deflator. Like when you get that power play. I mean, I think back to the Penguins series when obviously the officiating was completely one-sided, which is not a surprise. That you were just, oh my God, the Pittsburgh's on the power play. This is going to be terrible. It's going to go, they're going to get scored on. You don't fear that as much with Carolina. And a lot of that's just because Carolina has just not been good on the power play. Now, having said that, because I said that, they're going to score 3 goals tomorrow night in the power play, but it hasn't been an issue. And the officiating, I think, has been okay in this series. It hasn't really been great. It was better than Pittsburgh series, obviously. But if that's their biggest thing, if they get one, I think that they can avalanche into more. But I think it's they got to get one. And every time the Rangers kill one, it really just made it just talk about gripping the bat. They're gripping the bat hard on their fan advantage.
I think there's 2 sides to it. But if you want my take,
sure.
If I'm the Lightning, I'd rather play the Hurricanes because the Rangers have gotten the momentum against the Hurricanes at this point. And you talk about the unknown, the uncertainty, a young team that really has nothing to lose at this point, right? And regardless of who wins, I'm pretty sure whoever wins this series gets the home ice advantage over the Lightning due to seeding because the Lightning were the 3 seed and they're the division respectively. But the Rangers, what they did, getting Kopp, Mott is back, Igor is playing lights out. We saw what happened in 2019 with Jordan Binnington. Nobody expected that to happen. A lot of people and a lot of neutral fans, people who aren't Rangers fans, are saying Igor is the second best goalie currently in the National Hockey League already. That could be a bit of a stretch in some regards, but it could be very true. And that's what could carry the Rangers as far as they can. And I think the Lightning are somewhat afraid, maybe not afraid, but concerned about seeing a goaltender that plays nearly to the caliber as theirs. And this is where we bring in the Lightning fans' opinion. In the comments section, Garth Michael Patrick. As a neutral in this, Rangers have a very good chance of winning the series. Kane's atrocious on the road. Eventually, that'll catch up. I agree, Brian. I said to Tom, Igor can keep them in any game that they play. I'd rather us play Carolina.
Yeah.
So there's the take from the source itself.
We've seen this movie before. That the Rangers with less talented teams have gone further.
Yeah.
So if you, again, I'm not, listen, this is not a heretic statement. He's not Hank yet, but he's on the trajectory. If you put them on somewhat equal path, again, the Rangers went further with a lot less talented group of players and that goaltender. So the funny thing about it really, and this is just, they're young. Yes and no, because because the cornerstones of the team are pushing 30. So yes, they're young in areas. They're young most of their defense and most of their middle 6. But Panarin's 29, Zibby's 28, Kreider's 30. So, From a salary cap perspective, I said coming into the year, I wasn't predicting it, but this was their best chance to win before Fox's deal hit and before Zibanejad's deal hit, because they were fait accompli. They were going to happen. But again, I will tell you, this is not the best group you're going to see from. They still have more kids that are coming. You still haven't seen Zach Jones take a spot on this team. You still haven't seen Brennan Othman, who was tearing up the OHL. Like, they have more talent coming. It's just going to be trying to manage salary cap. Mm-hmm. So they'll figure it out. Yep. But again, they're a scary team because Carolina would walk into that series with expectations. They won their division. They should have done something last year.
Yep.
The Rangers are not supposed to be here. Kyle, with all due respect to your prediction, they're not supposed to be here. I mean, yeah, they could have got by Pittsburgh, but they should not be in this. I thought they'd lose a series in 5. I flat out tell you that. I thought they'd win game 3 and they'd lose 4 in 5. They won game 4. So
I'll say this: looking to how they've played, right, and seeing how they played Pittsburgh again, took 7 games, whatever. Looking how this series is planning out, I'll say this: obviously, you don't know this going into the game, but seeing how it is unfolded, can you imagine what the series would be like if these key cornerstone pieces were actually showing up offensively, like a Panarin's event? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
like this would be 5-6 games, close the book, be done. Like, we might even be talking about a Rangers playing the Tampa Bay Lightning right now, especially the way Carolina cannot put the puck in the back of the net if these pieces were actually showing up.
Yeah.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, and like I said, that the Penguin series was iffy. It was too iffy. So it wasn't until the cornerstones came through when they needed to. And again, one thing about this team, they get their backs against the wall, but they do not quit. That's not just a hashtag. I mean, like, it's legit. Like,
that's just not a saying on the rally towels. That means something.
It's brilliant marketing, whoever thought of it, but it actually embodies the team, and they're never out of it. And that's the difference. I remember, because we were having conversations. So I missed one playoff game actually in my adult life, because my buddy was getting married. Of course, it had to be game 7 against Washington, where they ended up winning 2-1. Not 2015. It was 2012. But I remember those years where when the Rangers went down 1-0, it was over. Like, you did not think that the Brian Boyles of the world were going to, put one in. And the black and blue shirts from 2012 that won the President's Trophy. Remember, they were down after game 5 to Ottawa. And they were down to Washington. And they ended up losing to New Jersey, who was a disaster. But, like, those teams couldn't score. Like, this team can score on top of their goaltending. And that's the difference, is Igor can steal it for you, but they have not had a power play like this in a very long time. And Adam Fox, like Barry Melrose said, like, he sees a lot of correlations with this team in 94. And I think if you take a step and say, try to cross-reference, okay, so Kreider's your Adam Graves, and Foxy is your Brian Leach, and Lindgren is your Jeff Bukaboom, and I don't know, Justin Braun's your Jay Wells. You start drawing the correlations to it. I see some of that. Mm-hmm. I think it's, a little early, but again, I didn't think they'd win this series. They might. I don't think they'd beat Tampa Bay. They might, because they're not supposed to be here. And I don't think they would. I don't think they look at Tampa Bay and say, we're screwed. Like, I don't think that they know what that's not in their DNA. Like, it's look, you talk about teams of destiny. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say that. I'm not that way. But, like, the people that do, you can kind of see, like, where they're coming from, because look, you were down 3-1 to Pittsburgh. You were down 2 goals in game 5 and you found a way. You were down 2 goals in game 6. You found a way. You were down a goal in the 3rd period, a 7th game at home. You tied it. You found a way in overtime. Like, they just find ways. I prefer you didn't have to find a way, but if you find a way, it's okay.
Yeah, a win is a win at the end of the day.
They don't ask how. They ask how many. So
nobody expected the Blues to be. I hate to keep using that reference. No, the Blues 3 years ago, nobody expected to be there. And speaking of the Blues, if they lose tonight, which they might, you're talking about a 1 in 6 chance, guys. A 1 in 6 chance. And Brian, what is your prediction at this point for this series?
It's game 5. They win game 5, they win game 6. If they lose game 5, they still win game 6. And I will take Igor in a 1-game playoff. Now, so right now, I think the Rangers win the series. Now, I have an implicit bias that I'd like to tell you I don't, but I do. Carolina's a very good hockey team. Carolina should win this series. Whether they do or not, we'll see. Tampa's a whole different animal if they get there. I think that's going to be, However, if you are a Rangers fan and you have aspirations of having a Canyon of Heroes parade, you really want Edmonton or Calgary to beat Colorado. You want Colorado as far out of this thing as possible by somebody else's, because when the Rangers played Colorado this year, that was not pretty.
Mm-mm.
They got lamb-basted. Those are football scores. Like, they got lamb-basted.
Yeah.
So, again, I try to balance my fandom with my analysis. That's just how I am. I'm surprised they're playing this well. I'm extremely happy about it, but I'm surprised they're playing this well. Again, I don't know that they'd beat Tampa. I think that they'd put a scare into Tampa. I don't think that they wouldn't lie down for Tampa.
100%.
I'll ask you this, Brian, real quick, because I know we're trying to close out the Rangers talk as well.
I have all night. I am here for you.
They do. Let's say they beat Carolina, right? They beat Tampa. Do you think they win the whole thing?
Who are they playing in the finals?
I don't know, because Colorado's another team. I think they'll close. I think they'll close out, but they're another team that's kind of being like they're one series loss away from being designated as another choke team.
Mm-hmm.
You give me Mike Smith in the finals, and I go 6 to midnight.
So you're rooting for an Edmonton series.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Well,
I will be a huge look, and it's crazy to say. Oh, yes, Brian, you want Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl? What the hell is wrong with you?
No, you want Mike Smith.
I want Mike Smith.
Yeah,
because you give that. You know what Igor and Mike Smith is? It's Peyton Manning and Rex Grossman. Remember the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
that's what it is. Okay, so you give me that matchup. You give me that Ranger power play on a guy who just let a goal in from the other team's hash mark. I'm good.
Book it.
I all my chips are in at that point. Like, I am like, this is going to happen.
Why not us? Edmonton. Brian, we appreciate you for joining.
I appreciate you. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And we always love to just chat it up with you when it comes to anything. Pleasure to meet you finally at MNG about a month or so ago. I felt like more than that. But anyway.
Tom, you were taller than I guessed.
Really?
Yes. You were taller than me. And I'm not that tall, though.
I'm only 6 feet, so I shouldn't say only. But Brian, again, where can people find you on the Sports Box and Blue Truth?
Yes, so we're mostly a football show on Tuesday nights, so highly opinionated. So I've been taking a little bit of a leave of absence from that, but I am keeping up with the Blue Truth page. So it's at Sports Box Show for Sports Box, at Blue Truth SB. For Blue Truth. Actually, if you like it, my wife is in the t-shirt business, and she happened to custom do a Ranger like a name shirt here. If you like to buy one, you let me know. I'll talk to her for you and get you a good deal. But no, it's just keeping up with the Rangers. It's a great year. I don't know where it's going to end. I'm more bullish on the team now than I was 4 days ago. So it's game 5 it's so key. If they win game 5, Carolina's just shell shocked at that point.
Yeah,
because then they would have lost their first game at home. Then they have to go win a game in New York,
which would be essentially their first home win if they do win, away win if they do win.
Yeah, I don't see it. And I think the world of Carolina. Like, I really thought the Rangers would lose this series in somewhat short, and it hasn't materialized.
Absolutely. I think game 5 is what the series is going to come down to. Whoever wins game 5 wins the series, in my opinion.
I think Carolina needs it way more than the Rangers do.
Yeah.
Because I think to stop the bleeding, for one. But then again, if you lost 3 in a row, you end up going to New York and you have to win when you haven't won a road game all playoffs. The Rangers can win this series and lose game 5. Carolina can't win this series and lose game 5, in my opinion.
Agreed. I agree 100%. But Brian, one of the biggest Ranger fans I know, has his own Rangers man cave. Let's go Rangers.
I was actually recognized at the game yesterday. Are you the man cave guy? I'm like,
where were you? Oh, that's awesome.
That I always enjoy that.
That's awesome.
Let's go Rangers.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's go Rangers.
Man.